Consider, if you will, the following question. If you randomly choose two people off the street and hand them each a video camera, will they someday return to you with the makings of a watchable, entertaining television program? The members of this station know the answer. Stay tuned, and so will you.
The following presentation is brought to you by the People's Organization for Original Programming. Poop and its members are solely responsible for its content.
See, I told you that's the first place they're gonna look. In a cave.
Yeah, well, it says here they only got the boy. Besides, let them find all they want. We'll just keep making more. Oh. Hi, welcome to Thump. My name's Craig Eisenhart.
And I'm Mark Zearfoss.
And we're going to talk about a man who made probably some of the strangest movies of the 1950s, Edward D. Wood, Jr.
Over the years, Ed Wood Jr.'s gotten a reputation as being one of the worst film directors of all time.
And in fact, one of his films received a Golden Turkey Award, labeling it as the worst movie ever made. And I believe that title was Plan 9 from Outer Space.
If you've ever seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, or if you've ever watched any other Ed Wood Jr. pictures, you probably know that these are entertaining films. Maybe not in the conventional sense, but there is a lot of unintentional humor in these movies. If you study these pictures, you also find that there's a certain directing style and approach that is distinctly Ed Wood Jr.'s. You can instantly recognize one of his films. A couple of years ago, Craig and I had the opportunity to meet someone who was there at the very start of Ed Wood Jr.'s film career. That man is an actor by the name of Conrad Brooks.
Conrad Brooks first appeared on the screen in 1952. It was Ed Wood's first feature film, Glen or Glenda. Since that time, however, Conrad has appeared in more than 100 movies. We caught up with Conrad several years ago, but the first time we weren't ready. The second time, however, we had our cameras and everything was ready to go. Conrad was more than happy to sit in front of them and talk about Ed Wood.
Conrad had plenty of stories to tell us, not only about Ed Wood Jr., but about some of the actors and actresses that starred in these films.
So without wasting any more of your time, here's Mr. Conrad Brooks in the life and art of Edward D. Wood, Jr.
Edward D. Wood, Jr., a man who wrote and directed some of the worst films ever made in Hollywood. 15 years after his death, Ed Wood has become something of a cult hero, a man who came to Hollywood with no money, no experience, and no connections, and went on to write, direct, and produce his own feature-length films. His eclectic entourage of stars included such luminaries as screen legend Bela Lugosi, ex-pro wrestler turned B-movie actor Tor Johnson, and Los Angeles TV horror hostess Vampira. These people, along with others from Hollywood's fringe, helped Ed Wood Jr. create a body of work that today boasts an enthusiastic cult following. Ed Wood's pictures feature a wide range of characters: psycho killers, girl gang members, pornographers, space aliens, zombies, ghosts, and atomic monsters all populate his films. Wood's first full-length feature, Glen or Glenda, introduced transvestites and transsexuals as its main characters. Made in 1952, this picture starred none other than Ed Wood Jr. himself as the title character, a man struggling to come to terms with a compulsive desire to wear women's clothing. Glen or Glenda reveals its plot through a narrator in pseudo-documentary style. Oddly peppered throughout the film are bits of Hollywood stock footage, crowd scenes, views of city traffic, even a repeated shot of a herd of stampeding buffalo. Wood added almost 20 minutes of such footage to pad out the film, which clocks in at a meager 67 minutes. Glen or Glenda featured film star Bela Lugosi in a supporting role. Although no longer the box office draw that he had been in the 1930s, Lugosi still commanded respect as a Hollywood legend. Wood paid the former Dracula star $1,000 for one day's work. Lugosi never suspected that Wood was shooting anything but a traditional low-budget horror picture. Wood wrote, produced, and directed several films over the next 8 years, including Jailbait, about a gangster who corrupts the morals of an innocent young man, Bride of the Monster, featuring Bela Lugosi as a mad scientist attempting to create a race of supermen, Night of the Ghouls, a story of psychics and ghosts, and The Sinister Urge, about a psychopathic killer who murders unsuspecting porno models. Surely Wood's most well-known picture, however, is the famous Plan 9 from Outer Space. The film's plot concerns an alien race that hopes to destroy humanity by raising the dead to create zombies who will follow their every command. In the end, the aliens only manage to raise 2 corpses from the dead before they are repelled by the local police force with a little help from the U.S. Army. Ed Wood's main star for Plan 9, Bela Lugosi, died several days into the original shooting schedule. Once Lugosi was gone, the picture's financiers backed out, and it took Wood several years to raise enough money to finish his project. Still, with some major script revisions and a Lugosi look-alike for a stand-in, Wood was able to save the original footage and edit those scenes into the final film. Plan 9 from Outer Space cannot be considered a well-made movie by any means. It features a twisted plot, stilted dialogue, over-the-top acting, cheap props, cardboard sets, and often a complete disregard for any rules of common sense. In spite of, or perhaps because of these flaws, the movie is fascinating and entertaining in its very own, very odd way. In watching any Ed Wood Jr. film, one can almost discern a sort of style that emerges. Every picture bears the director's distinctive fingerprint. From his weird subject matter to his distinctive dialogue, Ed Wood reveals a unique, some might say bizarre, artistic vision. No matter how low his budget, Ed Wood always found a way to get his pictures made. Today, these films speak for themselves. Still, the best of the worst.
Conrad Brooks appeared in many of Ed Wood's films. Probably best known for his role as Jamie the Cop in Plan 9 from Outer Space. And now, for more on Ed Wood, Here's Mr. Conrad Brooks.
I met Edward D. Wood Jr. in Hollywood in 1948 when I first went out there. Oh, I had no intention. Just went out there just to go out and see Hollywood. I was getting restless, being in Baltimore. I used to go to New York a lot and all that, place like Philadelphia. So my brother suggested, why don't we go to the coast? Okay. And I was only, 17 at the time. So when I got to Hollywood, we were there like a few weeks or so. I got to this Ed Wood was in a coffee shop. It was right close to this movie studio called Monogram Pictures. And I became friends, and he says, I'm a writer, producer, and director. I said, wow, I got to know a movie man. But this guy's never made a movie yet. I mean, he put on like, he knew the business, and that was it. He was a big timer. Well, anyway, as I got to know Ed, I found out this guy never made anything. But anyway, he was such a beautiful guy, he went along with the program. And then he became friends, and he did tell me eventually he was going to make a motion picture. And he says, when he does, I'm going to appear in it. And I said, Ed, I'm no actor. I had no intentions of ever becoming an actor, no training as an actor. And he says, don't worry about that. And like I say, he more or less adopted me. Mm-hmm. He was like a stranger. He was in the service. He was in the Marines, and he was a hero.
So he met you before maybe the other stars that he traveled with? I mean,
that's right.
Really?
Yeah, he was a young kid. I was 17. Ed had to be about 22 or so, at least 5-6 years older than me. And he came to Hollywood hopefully to make it as a writer. He wanted to get in the movie business. He had this great determination, and he had great looks. He looked like Earl Flynn.
Exactly right.
Very handsome guy. And a sweetheart of a guy. Ed enjoyed the movie people. I mean, he, as a kid, he grew up, he owned a little, when you view movies, a little projector, 8mm, whatever. And he always fooled around with films. This was his hobby. He loved films. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about Glen or Glenda. This is also doing a still from the movie Glen or Glenda. And
there you are in wonderful makeup.
Harry made me up there as the elderly man, and that's it. And this is my brother Henry right there, right next to me. Oh, Hank. In fact, we both were in that same movie, Glen or Glenda.
And Ed looks.
And this is Ed Wood directly behind us in his famous Angora sweater.
Yeah.
He was a transvestite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a man, and that's a man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. These are two men in the picture, plus Tommy Haynes. She also played the Christine Jorgensen. They tried to get Christine for the role, but at that time, he hit the headlines. He was in demand making Las Vegas appearances, so he turned the movie role down because there wasn't enough money. These were exploitation pictures. These pictures that I appeared in, like Glen or Glenda, originally George Weiss would make this picture in 2 days. But Ed Wood convinced him, after all, we got Lugosi in this movie, so we got to put a few bucks more into this production, because this might be your best picture of all your.
Comes the major surgery, the removal of the man and the formation of the woman. A woman born at the age of 24.
A new life is begun.
The body of the woman within begins to appear now. The world is shocked by a person who changed his sex. Thus, the strange case of Glen, who was Glenda, one and the same person. Not half man, half woman, but nevertheless man and woman in the same body. He dares to enter the street dressed in the clothes he so much desires to wear. Glen is engaged to be married to Barbara. Glen's problem is a deep one, but he must tell her soon. She's begun to notice things. Soon she will realize. He learned that foreign doctors were doing marvelous work with a sex change. Man to woman, woman to man.
Say, did you read about the guy that had his sex changed to a girl? Says he was perfectly normal, too.
How can a guy be normal and go and do a thing like that to himself?
What about their children, Doctor? Would their children become the same way their father is?
Glenda has made the decision. If the newspapers had not gotten hold of the story, it would have gone untold, unnoticed as so many others in medical history. Why is the modern world shocked by this headline? Why?
Do you realize what would happen if every man in the country that wanted to wear women's clothes or felt like a woman went to their doctors and wanted a sex change?
Glen and all the hundreds of thousands of other Glens across the nation face quite a problem.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like on this set? So, I mean, they were shot fast.
Quick, yeah. But Weiss had
Is
to,
it
he had to do
a-
these pictures fast because they were just, they were limited theaters. They just showed on Main Street.
And I can
You know,
imagine
and
that.
these theaters would run like 24 hours. You know, they run live burlesque, the main show, and in between burlesque, they would run films. You know, girly films, and of course, you're outside a theater, you look, and they have all these sexy-looking girls, and practically in the nude. When you go in the theater, they show you, it was just a come one.
Yeah.
You come in, you expect to see something, but the titles were tempting. You know,
Yeah.
you got Bella involved in it, which was remarkable. Oh, and then naturally in the 50s, Bela was up in age. You know, he was in no great demand. He was a great actor, but he was typecast. You know, he was so great that it'd be hard to put him in something. Imagine him playing a role as a father of a kid or something. It's Count Dracula, the father. Say, here, kid, get the milk or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, when you make Lugosi say, not milk, but of course Lugosi would always say, but I do not drink. Why? But do not be afraid. The story must be told. Anyway.
Pull the string.
Pull the string!
What's that?
Pull the string! He was cute. Bella was cute. I remember he came on a set on that picture, Glen and Glenda, and he said something about what kind of picture what kind of movie, what kind of picture is Eddie making? I said it's a science fiction movie. He says, but I got no script. You don't need a script, Bella. See, Ed was very smart. He said, look, my pictures may not be the best, but I got Bela Lugosi in it.
Yeah.
The picture is terrible. They're going to enjoy Lugosi. And that's one thing about Ed Wood. He was very shrewd on that deal. He always got a named player. And during the shooting, I said, Ed, how's the picture look? How you know the rush is? He said, it's great. He said, I'll tell you what, Paramount's going to buy this. Paramount. Hey, we're beautiful friends. I looked at my brother Henry, don't kid us. We're for you. We want you to make it big. After all, you're our only white hope. Paramount finally picked that movie up, a 30-year-old movie, and they reissue it in their chain. Midnight showings in New York City, and they found a new market. After I did several shows for Ed Wood, like Glen or Glenda, we did Sinister Urge, and then Bride of the Monster came up.
Okay, so is that the order then they went?
Yes, right. No, we did one other one. A picture called Jailbait with Lyle Talbot and Steve Reeves. Remember the guy who eventually became Hercules?
Right.
Yeah, very nice man, clean-cut guy. As I remember shooting on a set, only one objection: nobody smoked while he was on set. He was a clean health guy. Steve Reeves. Remember, he eventually went to Italy, and he appeared. Did Hercules, and he got rich. He took a percentage deal, and it paid off for this guy. He got super rich. He was Mr. America at that time. So
Really?
Actually, Helen Ames, she was an agent, and she was promoting Steve Reeves. Hopefully, like I say, he got the title Mr. America, and she was kind of pushing him into the movie business, figuring if he gets even a low-budget picture, there would be some film on him, and hopefully she can promote him to the majors, which it did. It really worked out for him. From Ed Wood's picture, got him started, and then first thing I knew, a couple of years later, he was in Italy, and he's doing these Hercules pictures.
So that was his first acting experience with
Ed Wood. He did one other picture at MGM, like a small bit role, but Ed gave him the top billing, co-starring role opposite of Lyle Talbot. Yeah. So I got Steve rolling pretty good. Steve became a rich man.
Jailbait, the shocking story of boy crazy girls and gun crazy guys.
What makes you think you can get away with it? Let us worry about that, bud.
I'm through for the night, Mac. I'll be on my...
The most of our modern underworld. Men who hate the law and abuse even those they love.
So what's with him?
He shot his first cop.
Screaming, bullet-blazing thriller, Jailbait.
He wasn't getting that much work. Eddie never got much money for his pictures. You know, in those days, if you got, say, if Ed got $1,000, he was lucky.
Really?
But with 1,000, you know, he wouldn't make a picture for maybe a couple of years. You know, and between then, you know, he took odd jobs, little odd jobs, you know, driving a taxi, or he'd write a script for somebody, maybe get a couple $100, you know, for some low-budget company, and possibly them guys would never make the movie.
Really?
So
well, he got his
in between, it wouldn't be much, but it was a few bucks, you know. And like I said, it wasn't money. He loved doing picture work. You know, that was important in his life. He wanted to do films. It wasn't the money. The main thing is himself. He loved being around films. He liked to be around show people. Tor Johnson, who also worked in The Bride of the Monster, and Tor was well known as a Swedish angel. He did wrestling around the world. In fact, in Bombay, India, 140,000 people came to see Tor Johnson wrestle there. That's, you know, he was a big name. He was also known as Swedish angel. And Tor was a super guy, big, huge guy, but it's like a lamb.
Really?
Yeah, he's just a nice guy. If you go to his home, he just had to treat you right.
Lobo, take the girl to orders.
Janet's car? Yeah. There's not a trace of it.
Let me loose, do you hear me? You will be soon as big as a giant. Or, like all the others, dead.
The octopus that Bela Lugosi wrestles at the end of Bride of the Monster can also be seen in several other pictures. The reason for this, Ed Wood Jr. permanently borrowed that particular prop from the prop department of Republic Studios.
And in a way, you could say that the whole idea for Bride of the Monster was borrowed also from a man named Alex Gordon. He had written a script entitled The Atomic Monster. Ed liked this script so much, he rewrote it and entitled it Bride of the Atom. When it was all said and done, it appears on the screen as Bride of the Monster. Getting it on the screen, however, was no easy job. Ed started shooting in October of 1954. Within several days within the shooting, they were shut down because of lack of money and because of the Screen Actors Guild. About 6 months later, in March of '55, they began to reshoot. And in May of that same year, Hollywood premiered Bride of the Monster.
For some reason, Ed always seemed to have trouble raising money for these pictures. One of the ways, however, that he would attract investors was to offer small bit parts to anybody that would throw money towards the film. Ed himself never saw much money from Bride of the Monster, however, because his entire production fee was only a measly $350.
See, these were low-budget movies. In fact, Ed Wood's 1954 release of Jailbait only cost him about $22,000 to complete. And again, Jailbait was a Ed Wood's, Alex Gordon collaboration. An interesting fact is that a character within that movie, a Dr. Boris Gregor, played by Herbert Rawlinson, that role was intended for Bela Lugosi, who at that time couldn't make the film shoot.
Jailbait, like every other Ed Wood picture, had an alternate working title, The Hidden Face. Jailbait, unlike any other 1950s gangster movie that I can think of, had a flamenco guitar soundtrack. The soundtrack for that film was also borrowed from another movie called The Mesa of Lost Women. Hoyt Curtin, the composer, also did the soundtrack music for the Jetsons and various other Japanese cartoons.
Which I guess will lead us back to Glen or Glenda, the first movie that Conrad spoke of on his tape. Again, started out under different titles. It started out being filmed under the title Behind Locked Doors. When it was released under various titles: Transvestite, I Led Two Lives, He or She. Can you think of any others?
I know there's at least 2 or 3 more. Some of you may have been thrown by the line that Conrad delivered as Bela Lugosi, pull the string, pull the string. That's a direct quote from this film, Glen or Glenda. The exact meaning of that quote, I'm not sure if Craig or I could really tell you. It's a little fuzzy to us, and we've seen the movie.
Anyhow, we'd like to thank Conrad Brooks, and because without him, this would never have been made. And again, if you have the chance, maybe stay tuned for part 2, or catch it sometime coming up soon. And that's it, I guess.
How should we close?
Pull the string!
Here we are with the ending credits. So close now to the end of the show.